Asked for paternity test. It's positive. Now what? First of all, I know I made a big mistake. I know I hurt her, but hear me out and be honest with me if I still could fix what I've broken or not. I'm Russian, so don't mind my English. I'm using a throwaway. I 32M started to date 29F in 2021. We had a great relationship. She's calm, sweet and considerate. We dated for a year, then moved to another city. Everything was going great. We made new friends and built a life there. Problems started when a male best friend of hers decided to move to the same city and found himself a place right across the street. Things started to change. He would visit almost every day. My ex was people pleaser. I tried to make it clear to her that it's getting annoying and that I don't like that guy, but she couldn't bring herself to tell him or set some boundaries. He was handsy and flirty in a way I couldn't stand. She would hint that she's not comfortable and he would behave, but 5 minutes later he starts with his usual. And she end up telling me that he mean nothing and he's like this with everyone. Fast forward to 2023. We found out she was pregnant. I was over the moon and both of us was extremely happy and excited. He stopped visiting and after like 2 months or so he moved back to his city. My ex and I had mutual friends. That's where one of our friends started connecting dots and started telling me how she had suspected something but kept quiet because she didn't want to be the reason a two people separate but can't hold this anymore. And played with my mind. She said that my GF and her best friend probably had a thing going on based on the way they used to act whenever we were out with our friends. And how it's strange of him to leave just as she got pregnant. She suggested that I don't put the baby on my name until a paternity test has been completed. I told my GF about this and she didn't take it well. She broke up with me instantly and after a few weeks agreed to the paternity test thing, but she made it clear that nothing will change, that she will never forgive me and won't ever come back to me if I ever regret what I did and ask for forgiveness. I told her we could just forget about the test, but she insisted. Our boy came few days ago and we did the test. Yesterday I got the results. And yes, I feel my chest terribly tight with regret. I didn't drink or eat anything. I couldn't even bring myself to go to work today. What do I do now? When we broke up, I never stopped helping throughout the pregnancy. She refused almost everything, but still I was always there for her. Deep down I knew that baby was mine, but the damage was done and I went with the plan. What to do now? How do I make it up to her? I know she would never come back to me. But how do I properly apologize? Just what to do now? Now to the second story. Am I the asshole for telling my sil her son is not longer invited to my house, ever? I, F26, have been married to my husband, M30, for 2 years. I am currently 18 weeks pregnant as well. My sister-in-law is F31, and she has a 15-year-old son, Riley, and a 6-year-old son. Riley is a very troubled boy. I don't really know the details, but I have always loved my sil and her children. So she tells me about his drug and alcohol issues, starting when he was just a kid. He's been in legal trouble and in and out of clinical settings and therapy. According to her, Riley been getting better recently. So, she asked my husband and I if he and his little brother, who is 6, could stay with us for just a few days while she and her husband went to a funeral. We said yes, of course. Well, to make a long story short, at first the boys were super nice and happy. We watched a movie. I made us dinner. The 6-year-old even told me about his plans for the future. It was all very nice. And then, Riley got into an argument with my husband. I was in the next room over and heard it start. It was because my husband moved Riley's jacket. I walked in just to see what was happening. Riley was very upset and my husband wasn't doing a very good job calming him, to be honest. I walked up and gently suggested Riley come with me to cool off. He agreed. However, when we were walking to the bedroom where I was going to talk with him calmly, Riley suddenly decided he wanted to try and fight my husband again, and shoved me into the wall to run back. He shoved me hard enough that my head hit a jacket hook on the wall and I was bleeding. After that, my husband called my sister-in-law and demanded they come home. My husband took Riley to a hotel for the night, and I stayed with the 6-year-old who was a sobbing mess after this. So, I told my sil I will never have Riley in my house again. She was so apologetic, but I didn't care. I'm pregnant, and Riley knows this, and he shoved me. He consistently tried to fight with my husband. He makes his brother cry all the time. My sil wasn't even mad. I said I didn't want Riley there anymore, but she thinks it's unfair. I said never again, and that his brother can still come. But I don't. Ida, and to the last story of the day. AITAH for throwing out my Sil and her family. My husband has 2 brothers and 1 sister. His sister and her husband are not my favorite people in the world. Recently they have been couch surfing as they lost their home. Long story which could have been avoided if they had adulted like they should have. First they stayed with my in-laws, but they used the excuse that my Phil has diabetes to get rid of them and their rowdy children. Next was his older brother and his wife. They had 2 spare rooms as 2 of their older children moved out a year ago and they only have the 6-year-old and their 13-year-old twins at home. After 3 weeks they had to move out due to a planned refurbishment. They were happy with them as they were generally tidy and helped out in the home. The youngest brother was the next to take them in. While my Sil was there, she helped out in the home and kept her children on a leash. The youngest brother's wife is very house proud, and she allowed them to stay for a limited time only as they have had a baby recently and her mother will be staying with them to help out for the first 6 months. Then they emotionally manipulated my husband to say okay. I agreed to it on the condition that she and her husband as well as their children keep the place clean, because in the past the only place they are messy in is my home. For example, if they are throwing something into the kitchen bin, they will throw it in the general direction of it and not in the actual bin. It's extra gross when it's foodstuff that dries up and stinks out the place. Similar things happened in the past where she would leave her sanitary towels on top of the bin lid in the bathroom instead of in the bin. Her oldest daughter started her periods recently and I asked the younger brother's wife how things were for tidiness. She said she had no complaints. They went to bed on time and kept the place clean. However, they were there for only 2 weeks. They are always tidy at the other houses. I know this from experience too. During Christmas and summer holidays when we stay over at each other's places, I have seen the difference in how they are at my place and the other places. Before they moved in, I made the younger brother, and my parents-in-law's witnesses to them agreeing to keeping my house as clean as it is and to chip in with chores. If they broke the rules they would be out immediately. She fussed and denied past wrongdoings but said as you wish, your highness, sarcastically. The first 5 days were smooth sailing. This morning I found a sanitary towel on top of the bin and not even wrapped properly. That is not all. Her daughter is staying in my daughter's room and she made a mess of the shampoo and conditioner in her bathroom and had left a tampon on the side of the sink, forgetting it from last night. Her husband leaves early for work and the kitchen was a mess when I finally got downstairs. I have a curious toddler and I don't want him to pick up a bloodied sanitary towel. I knocked on the guest room and told her to pack her shit and get out. She looked angry and tried to play innocent. She said it was only some blood and to chuck it in the bin if it bothered me so much. I told her no and picked up her suitcase, throwing their stuff in it. At first she wouldn't leave the house, saying she was going to wait for her brother as she doesn't take orders from me, but I told her this house belongs to me too. I dropped her and her youngest ones off at my in-laws. A few hours ago her husband came back from work and when I wouldn't let him in he made a scene. He went to my in-laws, but they don't want them there due to illness. When my husband returned from work, my in-laws turned up in our driveway with her and her family within 20 minutes. They are still standing outside and squabbling about being let in. I refused to open the door and told my husband if he backs down he isn't welcome in our home either. So, the family thinks AITAH because I have never liked her and am using any excuse to get rid of her. Quick update. Yesterday my driveway looked like a scene from some Mexican standoff. They were out there discussing the matter while I refused to go out and engage. After 2 hours, yes 2 whole hours, they left. They are currently at my in-laws, but they made a promise to return to discuss the matter tomorrow as everyone will be home from work and that way we could all find a workable solution. Well, at least that is what my husband relayed. When my husband got inside I told him that I would not have them in my house. I told him that he could clean up after them. Which he did. After cleaning up he asked me why I made him do that. I told him I was just as grossed out over other people's bodily fluids as he was, and unlike him I wasn't biologically related to them. So if he found it unsavory, imagine how shitty I felt in the past cleaning up after them. He promised to buy a new bin and bleach the sink 3 times. Our strategy for tomorrow is that under no circumstances are they coming to live with us. His niece will be made to clean up the bathroom shampoo and conditioner mess. He left that part for her. In the meantime our daughter can use our shower. We'll see how this turns out tomorrow.